We are here for session 3 this evening. We're going to be looking at chapter 3 of my book, which is primarily why we're here, so that I can give you a little bit of insight into what to expect from the book that I have written about unschooling. It's called School Isn't for Everyone and What You Can Do Instead, with a tagline, which I should have mentioned yesterday when we were talking about neurodiversity, but the tagline is a neuroaffirming guide to unschooling, because I wanted to make sure that people who were buying it knew that it was completely appropriate for families who are navigating neurodivergence, and all the things that involves, and the realities of family life when you are navigating things that are different to the rest of the world, or what the rest of the world appears to be able to do with ease. So yes, it's a neuro-affirming guide. This evening I'm going to be looking at chapter 3, which I did get wrong yesterday. So chapter 4 is actually about the first year without school, so we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Chapter 3, quite rightly so, spends time looking at what unschooling is. It's called A New Way to Live and Learn, and it explores very briefly, even though it's a whole chapter, what unschooling is, because although the book is called School Isn't for Everyone and What You Can Do Instead, it really focuses on unschooling. There are other things you can do instead, but this is definitely a book about unschooling. And people are always asking me, like, what it is, and trying to sum it up in a few words, even in a chapter, is incredibly difficult, because it's a very alien concept for people to really grasp. And the bottom line is, if you're not unschooling, or when you are unschooling, that's when you really get to grips with what it is. So we can talk about definitions, we can talk about what people do, we can talk about how people do it, but really until you have a lived experience of the aspects of unschooling and move further and further into the all-encompassing nature of that across all aspects of your life, it's going to be challenging to really understand it on a deep level. And that's not to say that you shouldn't ask the questions and you shouldn't grapple with them, and you shouldn't have a go here and there, but to really embrace unschooling and to really deeply understand what it is and how it works, you have to do it. That's not what I say in my chapter. I do try and actually give it a reasonable definition, a reasonable explanation of what it is. But this is one of the questions. What is it? How do you do it? And effectively, what does your everyday look like? Because we are so conditioned to need somebody else to tell us this is what to do, particularly with education. This is what your child needs to know at this age. This is the developmental milestone that they need to be hitting. This is what what topic they should be doing, and what they should be learning about that topic during this school year. We're so used to this concept that we should be doing certain things at certain times, and someone is going to tell us how to do it. And unschooling isn't like that. There isn't a set curriculum to learn. There isn't a set age at which children should be doing certain things. It's a very individualized and responsive to the children that you have, to their interests, to their needs, to your capacity, to your family situation. And with that in mind, that is why I was really keen to include stories from other unschooling families. So during the course of writing the book, I spoke to 10 um, unschooling families. Most of them were parents. As I mentioned previously, I was really fortunate to talk to 2 young people who were willing to share with me as well. But most of them were parents sharing their unschooling stories, sharing how they came to unschooling, the things that they first started to change within their family, and how those things made a difference and led to them changing other aspects and learning more about it until they kind of fully embraced this um, life without school, um, and this whole life of learning and being together as a family and in community with other families. So I was really grateful to all of them for their generosity of their time, and their hearts and their willingness to share their stories. Um, some of them are heartbreaking, not that dissimilar to many other families, um, in terms of how they came to unschooling, but they are all filled with glorious glimmers and joy about the things that unfolded and the things that largely they weren't expecting. They weren't expecting the change to be so dramatic, and so all encompassing. So I was really grateful to those families for sharing. And just as a way of kind of pitching, come back on another up night. If you're going to come back any night, come back Friday, because one of the parents that I spoke with for the book, and their contribution is in the book, is going to come and join me on the live, and we're going to have a chat together. So that's on Friday at 8 o'clock. And again, it's such a joy and a pleasure that they have agreed to come and join me and to share with you guys. If you've got any questions, like, pop them in the chat, because I'm really, or in the chat, in the comments, because I'm really happy to respond. So with that in mind, one of the things I was going to share with you tonight was like what we've done today. And like I said, because of the way unschooling is, like my family situation, um, my capacity, my access to transport, to resources, my children's needs, my children's ages, my children's stages, my children's interests, and a great many other things all feed into what our day looks like. And if I and also don't forget that, like, I've been doing this now a really, really long time. So what I've been doing today would have looked very different to 14 years ago. And what we've established in the principles and the ethos and the culture of our family is now so well rooted that some things that we're doing today wouldn't have been appropriate for us to have done 14 years ago, because we wouldn't have built those kind of trust muscles and that security in relationship, or indeed my children wouldn't have maybe felt that secure in their relationships because of their neurobiology, because of the way that they were experiencing the world. So what they would have needed was very different, which is why there isn't a cookie cutter answer to what have you done today, and then you go and replicate what I've done, because you can't. It won't be suitable. Highly likely it won't be suitable for your family. So today, we got up. This morning I had to wake my youngest because she was going off to a group today. Um, Now she was really sleepy, and I really persevered with waking her up because I know that she loves this group and that she wants to go. And we have an agreement between us that I have permission to repeatedly and continuously keep approaching her until she wakes up. I don't do that without their permission. I don't do that if they don't want to go. Okay, so there's lots of things that are deeply rooted in our relationship and our understanding of each other that inform just even that part of our morning, the getting out of bed bit. She was very sleepy. It took quite a long time to get her up this morning. We got her dressed. I would normally say, average day, if you don't know what else to do, just make sure your children are fed and watered. And then she went and proved me wrong by saying because she was still really sleepy, she didn't want any food before she went. So I packed like some extra bits for her to snack on if she wanted them. And so then I took her, it's about just over an hour round trip, dropping her off. So she goes to a drop off. She's 11, and she is the youngest one of all my children. That's the youngest they've ever been. The youngest of my children. None of my other children would have been dropped off at an activity at the age of 10 or 11. So she's the youngest one of all my children, and she's the youngest one to have done that. All the other activities we've done, places we've been, I am with and have been with my children all the time. I think my eldest first went to his thing, an activity without me when he was 12. Um, so that, so bear that in mind. That's one of the things that might be different between my family and yours, and my children and yours. So I did that. That's about an hour round trip. And then I came home, helped my other daughter get ready to go out because she was going to a home ed gymnastics session. So we headed off there. And after that, we stayed, and she's got two friends there. So we stayed and played with them for a bit. We happened to catch up with another lady who was in the leisure centre at the time, and I'd known her from when my older two did the same gymnastics class. So it was really nice to catch up with her. We had a lovely chat, the four adults together, while the children played. Then we went to pick up my daughter from her session that she had been in, my youngest daughter. And then we headed home. And then once we got home, my 13-year-old squirreled off to her bedroom. She's been watching movies all afternoon and planning. She's got big plans for Halloween with her friends, the same friends that she was playing with at gymnastics. So they've been planning that all afternoon. And my youngest had a bath, and we washed her hair, which is part of our routine because the place she goes on a Tuesday, because she goes every Tuesday, has a fire pit. So she always comes home smelling of smoke. So we've got in the habit of her having a bath. Again, your children might not like baths. I know this because I have a child who doesn't like baths. That might not be an appropriate thing. But she got all her Barbies out. She loves playing Barbies in the bath. So she was in there for quite a while, shall we say, enjoying herself. Yeah, and washing her hair. And that's kind of our day to day. My older two boys, they're 18 and 16. They get up when they want to get up, but after they're well rested. Um, I bumped into my 18-year-old this morning and I said, have you got any plans for the day? And he said, yeah, him and his brother, so the 16-year-old, and a mutual friend of theirs who they play with online all the time, are going to try and complete the last challenge on a game that they're playing together. And the challenge is on the hardest game mode to complete it without losing a life. And the three of them are working together to do this. To do that from beginning to end without losing your life takes about, on average, 100 hours. That's not including the hours you put in where you lose a life. And so that is that's what they're working on. You know, when we talk about children work or young people working on projects, that's the project they're working on, and they're doing it together. They're working as a team. From my understanding was that if one of them loses a life, that they all lose their life because it's a team effort. Because I said, or if one of you loses your life, does that mean the other two have to start again as well? And the answer seemed to imply that if one of them loses their life, they all automatically lose their lives anyway. So they are working on that together. It's not the first time they've done something like that. In fact, quite often they do games together, and they all work on helping each other complete all the tasks in a similar effort. So that's what they're working on. They've worked on it all day today. They spent about 6 hours on it yesterday. I haven't checked in to see how that is going, but I'm sure I will get an update later. So that's what our life looked like today. My husband also happens to work from home, so he's been in and out as well, but he does actually work. But he is about. So he is present in the house. You know, and we've also, like, in the middle of all that, let's not forget that I have 4 chickens that I need to feed, 2 guinea pigs, 3 rats, 2 cats, and a dog. And all the general other things, like, you know, popping laundry in here and there, making dinner, making lunch, connecting with someone that I've got a meeting with tomorrow, connecting with the lady that's gonna come and join on Friday as well. So it's all that's all part of the makeup of what we do. Oh, and doing some research online for my children for Halloween, like costumes and like decorations, and who's going to be trick-or-treating where and with who and at what time and in which locations. So like we call that admin for mums. So I've been doing all that as well. But like I said, one of the ideas of the book is to share how unschooling can look in different families. So it's not just my perspective and not just me saying this is what it looks like and people thinking that they need to replicate that. And in fact, you shouldn't replicate anybody that shares their story in the book, shares their story on the podcast, shares their stories locally, because unschooling is based on a set of principles and ideas. It looks very different in different families. And so I wanted to include different family stories to kind of showcase what it can look like, to give people an idea that it's okay to do things differently, to give people some ideas of maybe what they might like to dip into, maybe what they might like to try. But overall, it's about giving people a really good scope of what's the word I'm looking for? Just examples, I guess, about the possibilities, because it's not cookie cutter, because it's not one size fits all. The possibilities are endless in terms of what is open to you, and then trying to work out what fits and suits your child and your family. Hello, Ro. It's really lovely to see you. Yeah, you know, in part of unschooling is removing the expectations of society, of, you know, extended family members, even your own expectations about what your child should be doing, and really looking at the child that you have, and how best to support them and what they need until they can do that for themselves. And it's okay to and it's okay if that looks really different. For a long time, I used to dress one of my children, when we were going out, they found it incredible. I mean, they just found the whole process of leaving the house and going out and being somewhere else so incredibly difficult, that I was dressing him when he was 8 and 9 years old. And we very easily could have said, well, you're old enough to dress yourself now, and gone through a process of kind of making him dress himself, um, which really was ridiculous because he was never going to do it. So then we never would have got out of the house. So it was a bit of a win-win. If I helped him get dressed, then we were all able to go out. Um, but also it was way more relaxed to do that. It was a lot more fun. It wasn't always enjoyable. Some days were trickier than others. Some days he'd get in the car in his pajamas and I would put his clothes on the back seat and then would get dressed, or he would get dressed when we arrived at the destination. So just, doing things that suit you and your family and dropping those shoulds. We should do this and he should be able to do that by now because of their age, and just really shedding, that's part of unschooling, and shedding all those ingrained ideas, and expectations that are put on us and our children, especially if they're not working and it's causing stress and distress. So really building up our confidence in what we're doing, and also knowing that we're not the only ones. Being bold enough to say my 11-year-old doesn't want to go somewhere without me, so we do things together. That's okay, and not worrying about what other people think about that. Uh, it can be really difficult, I think, to grasp unschooling because it's based on these principles and because it's not based on actual concrete actions, because it's based on ideas. And one of the biggest ideas in unschooling, and this is like the kind of the basis for unschooling, is that unschooling is a life without school. And then deeper than that, as if school had never existed. Like, what would your expectations be if school hadn't told you that that's how things should be? If school hadn't told you that that's what they should be learning, or when they should be learning it, and how they should be learning it, particularly with reference to like independence. Schools are all about independence. At the age of 4, your child has to independently go into a classroom for 6 hours a day, being separated from you as their main caregiver, and be okay about that. And actually, biologically and developmentally, it's not okay. That's not an okay thing. But we listen to the teachers, the experts, who tell us that they should be, independent by now. And we ignore the cries of our child who says, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be separated from you. I'm finding this really difficult. And quite often we ignore, as particularly as mothers or as parents, our own emotional connection to that is telling us, actually, we don't like this either. This isn't biologically normal. We're supposed to be together in family units as young children, and then into community units. But it kind of has been really introduced, schooling introduced at really young, and that separation introduced really young. And in fact, when we grow and develop in communities, our children naturally walk away from us when they're ready, but also we're there, and the communities they're in are built on years and years of building relationships with those people. So the people that my children now go and spend the day with without me, and the places my children go without me, are places and with people that they have known and built relationships with for years. And so they feel fully confident being in those places without me. But they also know that at any given time, they can ring me and I'll come and get them. So like this, the thing that my daughter goes to on a Tuesday, if she says halfway through the day, I don't want to be here for whatever reason, and I don't care what the reason is, but for whatever reason, the people who are there will ring me, or she will ring me, and I'll come and get her. It's not forced separation. That's not where I was supposed to be going this evening with this chat. Um, but yeah, but it kind of leads into the complexities of answering the question, what is unschooling? Because really you want to start with something that you can grasp hold of. Like if you're going to remove one schooled thing from your life, what would it be? And quite commonly we start with things that are universal. So things like curriculum. That's, just don't do curriculum. Don't do timetable. Don't live to a timetable. Um, maybe your experience of school was related to toileting. The idea that you can only go to the toilet at certain times and you only have 10 minutes and you've got to be in the same, toilet space as hundreds of other children who've only got 10 minutes to go to the toilet. Well, maybe that's the first thing you want to make clear, that it's okay just to go to the toilet whenever you need to. Um, so you as a family working out what things you can change, what schooling things you can let go of at this point, and do that. That's kind of like a practical tip. And then on the flip side, simultaneously learning about what you do instead. Um, so if we're thinking about learning in particular, what is it that your child likes doing, and not bringing in like a curriculum in disguise, like going to a group maybe, just yet, especially if you're starting out. Which is why I say this is different, isn't it? Because my guys do groups now and they do classes, but it's the right classes. And for them, they don't have a negative connotation with classes in terms of their schooling. So your children might not be ready for those things. And they're not school-like classes, because if at any point they want to leave, we leave. If any point any day they don't want to go, we don't go. If they want to stop doing them, we stop doing them. It's a very, very different way of even approaching classes. But in the beginning, your guys might not be ready for that at all, because of the connotations that they carry with school. So like my guys have never been to school. My older two wouldn't even go to forest school because it had the word school in it. I had to change my language around things so that the things that they did actually want to do, they could access, because I changed my language around it. So we went and saw friends who were playing Lego. We didn't go to Lego Club, or we went and joined groups, forest group, not forest school, because it made it more accessible to them. It made it possible for them. So that was something that we did, and they'd never even been to school, so they didn't have direct negative impact of schooling on them. So there's so much really to consider. So I guess, how would I sum it up? I've obviously managed to write a whole chapter about it in the book, A New Way to Live and Learn. And I've called it A New Way to Live and Learn because it isn't just about learning. Once you take these steps into this, it impacts how you approach everything that you do in your life, because we're going to talk about play on one evening, but you can't separate children's play from learning, and you can't actually separate your life from learning. So everything we've done today, from the car journeys to cooking to resting to connecting with friends to playing in the woods to going to gym class, to buy in lunch at a cafe. Every single thing is contributing to my child's understanding of the world and how they relate to the world, and the concepts and the knowledge and the facts that they are learning about the world. You can't separate them. So that's why I've called it live and learn. It's a little bit like live, play, learn, isn't it? It's almost as if those thoughts have been a thread through my whole journey. Yeah, so learning doesn't have to look like school. In fact, I would say the less it looks like school, the more optimal your child's learning is going to be. Because developmentally, schools have this wonderful, it's not wonderful, I'm being sarcastic, this ability to smother and crush natural learning and to replace it with this external need to, doing a full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning, this external need to do what other people want us to do, to rely on experts to tell us what to do, to constantly look out of ourselves to potentially live this great life that we're promised. Whereas unschooling relies on us and our own motivation, our own natural curiosity. And schools really dampen and crush that natural curiosity, tapping into what feels good for me. Where is the next golden thread of learning going to take me? What's the next curiosity? What are my skills? What am I interested in? How can I connect with other people who are interested in the same thing? How can I discover more? And because of that, it's really deep and rich and meaningful. And because it's deep and rich and personally meaningful, the learning that happens is also deeper and richer and more meaningful. And that has an impact on our mental health and well-being, but also how well we retain and store those experiences, that understanding and that knowledge. And that is why I think unschooling is the way forward for the future. It's been the way forward for the future for a very long time. And it's why I'm really excited to always share more about what it is and what it looks like, and just to help people explore it in their own time, in their own way, at their own speed, but nonetheless look at it as a serious option for their children, for your children, and for your family. Tomorrow I am definitely doing chapter 4, and chapter 4 is the first year without school, definitely this time, because I checked. But like I said, if you're going to come back to only one more, come back on Friday, where I will be joined by Nicola. Her name's Nicola Leyland, who some of you may know, some of you may have met, some of you may have seen her work on YouTube. She's going to come and join me, and we're going to have a chat together. Then all of the episodes are available on Facebook for 30 days, and I am recording them and popping them on the podcast as well. So if you miss any of them, you'll be able to catch them there at a later date. Have a good evening. Hopefully see you tomorrow. Are you curious about unschooling and want to know more? Perhaps you're on the edge of starting this adventure, or maybe you've been doing this a while but you're looking for inspiration. After more than 13 years of unschooling 4 children and over 5 years supporting others on the same path, I have a vast library of resources that I'm happy to share with you for free, whatever stage of your journey you're in. You can check out the link in the description of the podcast, or you can head over to my website at liveplaylearn.org and look for the free resources tab. And there you will find lots of things to inspire you to keep living, learning and playing together. Said that the wrong way round, didn't I? Anyway, it's also a great way to make sure that you don't miss an episode of the podcast, which we will get back to